Steve Nash wasn't supposed to be a basketball player. Even in college, a guy brought up on hockey and football was considered not talented enough. However, Nash proved how wrong the critics were. Having made his way to the NBA and spending 18 seasons there, he made his team's offense the most effective in the league. A two-time NBA Most Valuable Player award, the highest free throw percentage and fourth most assists in the league history. He became the greatest Canadian basketball player of all time. Hello, you are on the Chronicle of Hoops channel, and today we will remember Steve Nash's thorny path to the fame and pay tribute to his influence on modern basketball. Stephen John Nash was born on February 7, 1974 in Johannesburg, South Africa. His father was a professional football player from England and his mother was from Wales. His parents decided to move to Canada when their son was 1.5 years old. That's why Steve has both British and Canadian citizenship. A higher standard of living opened up a large number of sports opportunities for Steve. Studying with his brother Martin, Steve excelled in almost everything he tried. First, while still in elementary school, he won 3 chess tournaments. A little later, he discovered football talent. The boy who received the soccer ball as a gift for his first birthday had an impressive record on the St. Michael's High School team. Steve showed great skills as an attacking midfielder and was predicted to have a bright future in football, all the way to Team Canada. However, it was difficult for him to limit himself to one sport. In addition to football, Nash was fond of lacrosse, rugby, and like any Canadian child, hockey. His idol was Wayne Gretzky, and Steve imagined himself as a professional athlete in several sports at once. But the times when this was possible are long gone. Nash discovered basketball in 8th grade. In those years, the NBA's marketing mills accelerated so much that basketball advertising reached Canada. And the ambitious guy, inspired by the new hobby, told his mother that one day he would play in NBA and become a star. This was a very ambitious goal for a short, white Canadian kid. But his parents supported him and decided to put the eggs in different baskets. Therefore, his brother Martin, who also did well, focused on football, and Steve completely went to basketball. Although at school, he continued to successfully combine both sports. Steve's parents didn't fail. Not every family can boast that one son becomes a two-time NBA MVP and the second place for the Canadian national football team, and in MLS for the Vancouver Whitecaps, which, by the way, is co-owned by his brother Steve. Steve Nash quickly became the leader of his high school team and led it to a victory in the British Columbia Championship. It would seem that NCAA will now open its doors for a young player, but wait a minute, in the US, nobody cares about Canadian basketball. Despite his high school success in football and basketball, no elite college wanted to take Nash. Spending a solid financial grade for athletes on a frail white boy seemed to them the height of recklessness, especially when you consider that he was diagnosed with spondylolisthesis, a disease in which the tension of the spinal muscles causes constant sharp pain. It was because of that, throughout his career, Nash didn't sit on the bench, but lay next to it. Steve's coach sent letters of recommendation to more than 30 American universities, but only one responded. Santa Clara University head coach Dick Davey watched the footage of young guard twice before traveling to Northern Carolina to see him play. About how he saw Nash on the court, Davey later said, "I was terribly nervous, hoping no one else was looking at it. You didn't have to be a Nobel Prize winner to know that is the guy is very good." It was to be hoped that none of the bigger teams had seen him in the game yet. So, our guy moves to Santa Clara, gets a sports scholarship, and immediately gets into the Broncos, who bet on him. Realizing this, Nash tirelessly trained on the weekends, and one day he discovered the abilities of an ambidextrous himself, a person who equally successfully owns his right and left hands. He performed each basketball exercise in double volume, first with his right hand, then with his left. Free throws, long shots, tennis ball dribbling, this and more were standard pastimes for Nash. It may not be as fun as college drinking, but it's unlikely Steve regretted it when he was selected in one of the strongest drafts in the NBA history in 1996, along with Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, Allen Iverson, Antoine Walker, and many others. Already in his first season, Nash led Santa Clara to victory in the Western Conference, and in the first round of the 1993 March Madness, 6 accurate free throws in the end brought victory over Arizona. He played for the university all 4 seasons, and in the last 2 he became the Basketball Player of the Year in his conference. After that, he declared for the NBA draft. These NCAA successes were enough to convince Phoenix Suns managers to draft 22-year-old Nash 15th overall. Scouts called him, back in the day, the best clean point guard in the draft. However, fans denounced the selection of relatively unknown player and booed him. Most likely because, despite his impressive college record, Nash hadn't played in any of the major conferences. The club hoped that he would become a good replacement for the already quite old Kevin Johnson. But here's the bad luck. In August, the Suns traded for another young point guard, Sam Cassell, who managed to become a champion twice in his first 3 seasons in the league. And during this season, they traded him to Dallas for Jason Kidd. With such stellar competitors for position, the rookie was given only an auxiliary function and 10 minutes of time on the court on average per game. In the 97-98 season, Suns' main playmaker Jason Kidd also gave no reason to doubt his skill, but Nash still managed to get 22 minutes of playing time for himself. He regularly was coming off the bench, already scoring 9 points per match, and noticeably added to the percentage of hits. But this didn't help him to stay in the team. In 1998, the point guard was traded to Dallas Mavericks for future Kazan Unix player Martin Mursep, Pat Garrity, a certain Bubba Wells, and a first-round draft pick. In Dallas, Don Nelson immediately entrusted Steve with the position of the main point guard. However, Nash at first didn't justify the mentor's hopes there either, and in the second season in the new team, Steve even periodically began to enter the court from the bench, and in general, he was shy to take on the game. Dallas was starting to lose faith in their recruit and even signed the little-known Howard Isley from Utah as a safety net. I remember one meeting after the match. The whole team was there. We won, but Nelly got furious. He showed us our mistakes. Dirk and I were just beginning to become decent NBA players, and I thought he still didn't believe we could make it. Nelly shows us the 4th quarter. We are lacking. We don't move the ball. We are lazy. And at the end of the match, I beat my opponent, go under the backboard and score. Nelly says, "Well, sometimes you can make it with a pure talent." Dirk looks at me and asks again, "What talent?" It was funny, but then I got really angry. Nobody believed in Nash back then, even his best friend. Everything changed in the 99-2000 season after one of the matches in training. An enraged Don Nelson pushed Nash off the treadmill. By the season 3, the coach was just tired of babysitting a point guard who can't break the bar of just 8 points and 5 assists per game. Steve, of course, was taken back. "Coach, I need help." "No, I need help." "Stop doing bullshit. You are a dominant player. You are the best shooter in our team. Stop giving up shots." Don Nelson was convinced that Nash's passivity in attack cost team victories, and in the end, he came to the conclusion that he went through all the ways of influence. After persuasion, direct criticism, and scandals, Nelson gave the playmaker an ultimatum. He promised to find the point guard for every match in which he makes less than 10 shots. And after such a kick, Nash opened up. But the 2000 Olympics in Sydney played an important role in this. At the Olympics, Nash was the captain of the Canadian national team. He was also offered a place in the UK team, but he still chose Canada. After a great start in the group stage, some predicted Canada would fight for almost a gold medal. However, in the quarterfinals, they lost to the French team by only -5. Winning the Russian team in the last game, Canada eventually took 7th place. And Nash didn't hide his disappointment as a result. Very disappointing. "I feel like I've let everyone down." After this experience and an ultimatum from the coach, Steve finished the following season in 2001 with over 11 attempts per game, almost doubling the number from the previous year. His averages have exceeded 15 points and 7 assists, and given his huge gaps in the game in his own half on the court, he at least ceased to be a minus unit in the team. But that was already enough for Mavericks to make the playoffs for the first time in over a decade. They lost in the second round to the San Antonio Spurs, but were definitely optimistic about the future. Their point guard finally brings the result. The 2001-2002 season confirmed this. Steve Nash had already scored almost 18 points and 8 assists per game, which made him the first Canadian to make it to the NBA All-Star game. Dallas also added the 157 victories, but again stumbled in the second round. The legendary Kings became the insurmountable obstacle, who went after the same conference final with the Lakers. But more about that another time. The next year, Nash goes to the All-Star game again, and the Mavericks get to 60 wins. It was already a full-fledged contender that made it to the West Final but lost to the future champions, the San Antonio Spurs. The 2003 off-season saw a lot of changes in the team. Experienced veterans such as Michael Finley, Nick Van Exel, and Avery Johnson left Dallas. Young people were added, and the Texans got down to the level of 2001 season. Although Nash had a season-high 8.8 assists per game that season, his scoring decreased, a rare occurrence for a player in a contract year. But nevertheless, along with the status of a free agent, Nash received a contract offer from his native Phoenix, in which they already understood who they have lost. Naturally, the absolutely loyal Steve wasn't going anywhere, but Mark Cuban didn't repeat the Suns' offer for Nash, even though it was even the maximum contract that was commonly thrown around these days. With great hesitation and reluctance, knowing of his predisposition to a back injury, Cuban sent Nash to Phoenix. Instead, he spent money on Eric Dampier. It was at the moment that Steve Nash's full-fledged transformation into a franchise and a superstar happened. In Phoenix, he received as many opportunities and powers as Don Nelson could not have given him with all his desire. In fact, a back injury was not such a serious problem back then, especially when you moved to Phoenix. In 2000s, everyone knew that if you want to prolong your health and career, go to Arizona. It was there that they pieced together Grant Hill, brought Penny Hardaway to life, particularly reinvented Shawn Marion, and delayed the end of Shaq's career for another couple of seasons. But even Brian Colangelo didn't realize then what kind of diamond he could grab, and for quite reasonable money, a little less than $9 million a year. The Suns' leadership did not aim at the stars. In fact, the team led by Mike D'Antoni had only 29 wins in previous seasons. In the summer, they acquired only Steve Nash and Quentin Richardson, which didn't look like a serious increase. The Suns never thought that the ultimate decision would be the acquisition of Nash. That summer, they were choosing between Nash and Ginobili, and were just looking for some kind of balanced creator. And the coach himself never considered himself as a genius. D'Antoni came to his concept in many ways by accident, when his Milan was at its peak in '93. Mike remembered that he always liked the space in attack, and began to purposefully reduce fives, changing fifths to fourth and fourths for thirds. But he himself very much doubted that the same would work in the NBA. Even his assistants didn't really believe that such a system was viable. But the result did not pressure the team at all, and D'Antoni received the carte blanche from the management. Mike D'Antoni's famous 7 seconds or less fast basketball system is, in fact, Steve Nash. When the experimental coach gave all the control of the attack to the player, whose capabilities he himself did not really understand yet, Nash fell into his element. Steve was the perfect ingredient for this type of basketball. He quickly mastered to the control of the early attack and brought the percentage of hits at the grandmaster line, 50 from the field, 40 from 3, 90 from the free throw line. And then everything went by itself. The Suns took everyone out in the preseason and started with a win rate of 31-4. The new backbone out of Nash, Joe Johnson, Amari Stoudemire, and Shawn Marion, arrived under Nash's trade pick, ironically, put on the most spectacular play in the entire league. Phoenix took first place in the offensive rankings, scoring 110 points per game, which led them to 62 wins for the season and take first place in the entire league. And Nash himself, who was given as many as 11.5 assists and shoot it with a phenomenal efficiency, became the MVP of the season. Outscoring Shaquille O'Neal, he became the first Canadian in history and only third point guard after Magic Johnson and Bob Cousy to win the MVP award. While receiving this award, he dragged all his teammates to the podium and paid tribute to them. If the award came with a circular saw, we would cut it to all the guys right here. In the playoffs, the Suns first swept the Memphis Grizzlies with a young Paul Gasol, and in the second round they met with the former Nash, the Dallas Mavericks. Steve couldn't lose this series, a 4-2 victory, and Arizona met the conference final for the first time since 1993. It is symbolic that at the time, the MVP of the regular season was also from Suns, Charles Barkley. However, Phoenix failed to make it to the grand final this time, losing to eventual champion San Antonio. Not many people expected the Suns to repeat their success next year, but the Phoenix, accelerated by Nash to space speeds, was the league's main attraction in the new season, with 7 players at once scoring a double-digit number of points on average per game. The team again became the most productive in the league. Phoenix won the Pacific Division again, and Steve Nash became the first point guard since Magic Johnson to win the MVP of the season for 2 consecutive years. By that time, it became clear to absolutely everyone how important point guard is for Phoenix and convincing in general within the entire NBA. Many people considered him the best playmaker in the leagues of those years, who took this unspoken title from Jason Kidd, who unwittingly slowed down the Steve's career in the first season. After returning to Phoenix, the Canadian became the best assistant in the NBA for the 3 consecutive seasons. But the most important thing is how much Nash influenced the game of his team. For 9 straight seasons, he was the point guard of the NBA's top offensively rated team, and with Antoine Walker throwing 27% of 3-pointers in 2004, and with a big Shaquille O'Neal, not particularly disposed to the fast basketball, and with Amari and Joe Johnson, and without them, and before the cancellation of handshaking and after, and with D'Antoni, and without him. Magic Johnson and Steph Curry only have 3 of this season, while Steve Nash has 9 of them in a row, 3 with the Mavericks and 6 with the Suns. With the arrival of Nash, Phoenix made a huge leap forward, becoming a regular in the playoffs. The team has amassed 153 home arena sellouts in a row, a figure that any major arena, even Madison or Staples, would envy. Rivals tried everything against Nash. Steve became a little punching bag. His nose was broken, he played with the black eyes, broken lips, but the man, as if nothing had happened, went to the match after any injuries. Nash was considered by many to be overrated at the time. They still do. Shaq still talks on every corner that he was robbed of his MVP in 2005. Nash was accused of fragility and weakness in defense against the backdrop of Bulldogs, Kidd and Billups, considering the kind of white collar in comparison with the underground Allen Iverson. His rise was associated only with the influence of the D'Antoni system and unprecedented freedom for his time. Plus, he never made it to the finals, unlike Kidd and Billups. Steve Nash made 118 playoff appearances, the most of any player who never made it to the finals. And all of the legends and stars who end up without a title, Nash gives it the least weight. His victories were more global. It was Nash, and not Kidd Billups or some Mike Bibby, who turned out to be a symbol of a change. It was Nash who made D'Antoni's revolutionary system viable. It is Nash who was statistically the best offensive player of 2000s. It was Nash who forced the coaches to give up excessive control and give control to the first numbers. It was Nash who was prototype of the best point guard of the new era, a playmaker who can shoot from any distance but is ready to go into the shadows and create winning situations for the partners. Having frank gaps in physicality, Nash took his own with head, radio-controlled passes, long-range 3-pointers, and total control of the team's offense. In Phoenix, Nash became a cult figure along with Charles Barkley. And with the advent of advanced statistics, it became finally clear that Don Nelson was absolutely right, and Nash should have been required to have much more than 10 shots and much more 3-pointers. In fact, it was those Phoenix Suns that laid down all the trends that are clearly visible now. Positionless basketball, endless combinations with small fives, emphasis on 3-pointers, increasing the speed of the game and the absolute dominance of the point guard, primarily focused on the attack. Formally, then, they came to collapse. The team had never won anything. D'Antoni was actually exiled from the NBA for some time, and only in the Rockets, with Harden, was able to return to his system. And Nash completely ended his career in the Lakers, the official cemetery for the elderly ring chasers. In 2012, the 38-year-old Steve made his final All-Star game, left Phoenix to join the next super team in Los Angeles. There he took number 10, explaining this as a tribute to the many players who played under it. First of all, Zinedine Zidane and Lionel Messi. The Nash, Bryant, Artest, Gasol, Howard 5, of course, aimed only to the championship. However, as is usually the case with the Lakers, in such situations, something went wrong. The 17th season in Steve Nash's career was ruined due to the health issues. In Game 2, Nash suffered a left leg injury after colliding with the Trailblazers rookie Damian Lillard. He was expected to miss only 1 week, but recovery took almost 7. The point guard then missed the final 8 games of the season with a right hip injury that caused nerve damage. He tried to return, but couldn't. In total, he missed 32 games and scored the fewest assists for himself in the 21st century. And the Lakers lost to the San Antonio Spurs 0-4 in the first round. Later, Steve himself called that season the most disappointing of his career. During the 2013-14 season, Nash continued to suffer from the leg injury problems. He returned to action in February 2014, when he was already 40 years old, played 15 matches with 20 minutes, and announced his retirement. After a while, Steve Nash began his coaching career through a consultant position with the Golden State Warriors, which earned him the NBA title, albeit in a slightly different role. In 2018, Steve was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and in 2020 he received his first head coaching position, heading the Brooklyn Nets. His appointment was supported by new Nets leader Kevin Durant, who had worked with Nash in Golden State before moving to Brooklyn. But you know without me how this story ended. The first thing people remember when they hear the name of Steve Nash is his basketball genius, which can be described with various bright epithets, as much as you like. But the historical value of Nash is that he was no less interesting off the court. How many times have we heard stories about the bankruptcy of athletes who only yesterday were dissecting inexpensive fur coats, driving around in luxurious cars, and today they are forced to hide from alimony or, at best, earn on the remnants of their popularity? Nash realized that he didn't want to join the ranks of such unfortunate athletes even before he got into the NBA. While still in college, he received a degree in sociology, which was the first step towards the creation of Apoko. It is a social media company that Nash co-founded with Charlotte Hornets star Baron Davis. It specializes in training athletes to manage their finances and wisely use their own brand rights, deals with the strategic planning, distribution of revenue shares, and smart investments. In 2001, the basketball player founded the Steve Nash Foundation. The foundation seeks to promote children's health by funding projects that provide relief to those affected by poverty, disease, and abuse. It creates opportunities for education and play. Nash has his own company called Mid-Hawk, which produces custom short films and commercials for the biggest brands. Moreover, Nash was directly involved in all his creations. In 2008, Nash partnered with Nike to launch the experimental project Trash Talk Shoes, which involved designing sneakers from recycled waste. The promotional concept for the product, called the $16 Million Man, was developed by Nash Mid-Hawk Studio. That is, Nash was both the customer and the executor of the order. In addition, Nash popularized his favorite soccer among NBA players. He hosted an annual charity tournament in Chinatown, which included such stars as Edgar Davids, Grant Hill, Thierry Henry, Chris Bosh, Nate Robinson, Kobe Bryant, Landon Donovan, Tony Parker, and many others. Basketball was something I came into late. I probably wouldn't have made it in NBA if it wasn't for soccer. The anticipation, the awareness, the angles, the vision, all those things that were really important to me as a basketball player, they came from soccer, the basketball player recalled. Interestingly, during the 2011 lockout, Nash went to Europe not to play basketball like many of his colleagues, but to maintain his shape at Inter Milan football training. Milan has wonderful food, a pleasant climate, and the loads with due effort are no less than in training in the NBA. I wanted a little variety, and the management of Inter kindly agreed to help me. And now I'm doing what I love, and at the same time, I don't let myself get fat. The athlete is also sponsor of the Steve Nash Youth Basketball League in British Columbia and co-owner of the Vancouver Whitecaps Football Club. As for his personal life, Steve has twin daughters and son from film producer Alejandra Amarilla, with whom the basketball player was married until 2010. After 6 years, he married Lila Frederick, a former volleyball player. The couple has a son. Giving well-deserved epithets to Steve's brilliant game, we first of all note his influence on modern basketball. It was Nash who became the conductor of today's popular ideas of fast attacking and playing with the short five. He became proof of the key role of the point guard on the floor. In the era of boring and rational basketball in style of San Antonio and Detroit, Steve became a kind of revolutionary, showing that a bright and seemingly chaotic game can not only delight fans, but also give results at the distance. True, with one remark, only during the regular season. But Nash's fans, for the most part, adored him. At first of all, for the fact that he seemed to be one of us. An unathletic and sickly white guy who entered basketball sort of by accident. He didn't have any natural talents and added, thanks to a brilliant mind and obsessive work on the shot, to respond to the booing of his own fans with the three-point hits. He had a rather ridiculous hairstyle, arranged beer tours and bars, and regularly appeared in compromising photos and videos. Throughout his career, Steve was overcoming himself, resorting to various ways to level of chronic back problems, but he played exactly the way any of us would like. He dispersed attacks, tore the defense open with unreadable passes. He was always looking for partners and strove for maximum personal efficiency. Yes, and he lost the way any of us would like, when his nose was broken, when he was forced to score 48 points, when the opponent needed a miracle, and Tim Duncan hit from behind the arc, when the judges interfered. With each defeat, he only became stronger, and that's why he spent his best seasons after 30. That's why he came closest to the final at the end of his career, with one of his weakest teams. Nash is humanly close to a simple fan. Possessing a completely ordinary physical data for North American basketball, Steve was able to break through to the peak of fame, proving that even a short, white player can become a key figure in the NBA. If only there was a talent that nature definitely didn't deprive of the cult point guard of Phoenix. In fact, all of Nash's greatness in his cult following.